Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Women's Wisdom Through the Ages. And we've changed the format again in 2023. We've got quite a few interviews lined up and chatting with old friends and new. And I'm very happy to welcome back today Meena Kumar. So welcome, Meena. Lovely to have you. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Catherine. It's been such a long time. It's lovely connecting again.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so for those of you who are new, Women's Wisdom Through the Ages came about a few years ago, and it started off as a podcast, then it turned into a YouTube channel. And so the plan is to have the video as well as the podcast, and the podcast over time will become more widely available. It still will be there. It's actually on Podbean currently. And the concept behind Women's Wisdom Through the Ages is that as we age, we grow in wisdom. I quite often joke and I say, who knows more than a teenager? Oh, a 20-year-old. Because when you're in your 20s, you think you know everything. And then when you're in your 30s, you realise, actually, I don't know that much. And then when you're in your 40s, you realise, actually, I know less even than I thought I did. And for me, part of gaining wisdom is realising how much you don't know. I don't know if that's something you found, Meena.
Absolutely. I see my kids now and they know everything, right? And I said, wait till you grow up. There'll be various stages in your life and you'll say, I don't know anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we change. Like I can remember being full-on activist with everything when I was, in my teens and 20s, and I was out there with, environment and this and that. But then over time, sometimes I change because I realized, okay, maybe that organization wasn't what I thought, so I stopped financially supporting them. Or maybe I didn't understand as much as I thought I knew about this issue. And so that's one thing I love, that as we get older, we change and we can modify what we think because we thought we knew, but then there was actually a lot more to it that we found out about later, and different sides of the same issue. However, also I find one thing I love in life is that when we are coming from different decades, we have a different understanding. We have, like, say, for example, what am I? I think I'm a Gen X. What are you?
I have no clue.
Okay. What decade? How old are you? What age, roughly? I'm in my 50s.
I'm in my 50s too.
Yep, cool. So you're probably a Gen X, the same as me. So with the Women's Wisdom Through the Ages, we've had 20-year-olds up to 70-year-olds. And we've got one of my favourite people coming on very soon, and she's 79. So I'm so excited to have her on. Got some other people, like I said, old friends and new, that are lined up, especially for the next few months, which is awesome. And so when we come together with someone, like, say, for example, I can remember thinking rebellion was really bad. But in the Bible it says rebellion is as witchcraft, but it's talking about rebellion against God or against the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not, or thou shalt honour thy parents. And I found over the years that a lot of that comes across everybody. Every culture seems to have those basic principles of them being good and bad. Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely.
Yep. And I came across that from teaching a group of international students. And it was just fascinating. And it was like, wow, we had a Sikh, we had someone who was Shinto from Japan, we had a few atheists from Eastern Europe, we had, someone from France, we had someone from Italy. It was such a diverse class. We had someone from a Muslim from Turkey. And yet all of those same base things were in every culture. So it was just fascinating. So Women's Wisdom Through the Ages. So when we have different people of different ages, we think differently. So young ones, they're always pushing boundaries and looking at things a different way, which I love. And so sometimes rebellion can actually be good, and especially as a teacher or even sometimes in the workplace, working with young ones, it's like if they're rebelling against something, it's like I have to just sort of take a step back and think, okay, what is it? And is it actually something that we need to look at? Being older, maybe we need to change something.
Yeah.
And especially as a teacher, I've seen that. And it's like sometimes my students that have given me the biggest challenges, I'm like, actually, they're onto something. I need to change. Or if people are trying to get you to do something against your will, especially as a Christian, we don't ever go, like God gives us free will. So there's, certain boundaries that you sort of, I don't believe should be crossed. So, yeah. And the last thing that we did in 2022, we did a different format. And it was actually looking at women's wisdom through the ages over time, through chronological time. And we went back, even sometimes we looked at biblical stories, sometimes we looked at different times in history. And so it was just a totally different way of looking at it. Yep. So it's been evolving over time. So this year I think it'll be a bit of a mix. And I'm so pleased that we have Meena back. And I would like to, first of all, could you give us a little bit of a rundown about what you talked about last time you were on? That would be great.
So the last time it was about my breast cancer journey. So it was sometime in 2010 that I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And we talked about how I negotiated that, the experience, the discovery that I had breast cancer. And yes, a lot of people actually watched that video, the two-part video. And I had some very good and interesting feedback. So a lot of people, of course, my close friends, family, they all knew what I was going through, but there were many who they were friends, but they or some new friends who didn't know me at the time. They said they found it very inspirational.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And the feedback that I got, and also what I felt at the time, as well as feedback hearing from other people, was that, we can go through and you're actually dealing with the diagnosis in the first place. And that was just a wonderful journey of how you were going through that and sharing, with family and different things of the sort of impact. But then we split that interview into two. And so the second part was the exciting new venture that came out of that. Did you just want to share a moment just on that one?
Yes. So with the experience and with the breast cancer journey, the treatment, I asked myself those questions: why me? Nobody in my family for generations had cancer of any kind. And I then started a blog because of all the research I did about what we eat and horrors of horrors, what we put on our skin, which has a direct relation to not only cancer, things like parabens and aluminum, and, with the deodorants that we use, and also the food that we eat and what we apply on our skin. So that led me into actually trying out. I started with soap, and then moisturizers, face creams, deodorants. And now we have a range of around 15 different products, hair serums and face serums, all completely natural, handmade by my friend Seema and me. And yeah.
And I'm a fan.
Okay. Thank you very much.
So tell people where to get that.
Okay, it's called Bodhi Tree Skincare.
And so BODHITREE skincare.
.com.au.
Yeah. So bodhitreeskincare.com.au. And I love the deodorant. I think I got Rose and I think I've tried another one, but I love them. Yeah, they're fabulous.
Thank you so much. In fact, we have now, since we spoke, we've
Mm,
actually gone towards sustainable packaging. So
mm,
even with the creams and the deodorants, lip balms, everything, they are in cardboard packaging. So it's called zero
mm.
waste. Zero
Okay.
waste. You just
Yep.
pop them into your compost bin.
Yep. Okay. Wonderful. Awesome. Okay. And so we're extremely happy to have you back. And we can see that Meena is in Sydney and she's in a beautiful part of Sydney called Carlingford. And it's at the beautiful mountain. Well, it's not really mountains, but they're pretty big hills. It's just
Yes.
beautiful. And people can see that I'm in a different place now. I'm in a place called Tamworth, which is for the people overseas. It's sort of like the Nashville. It's the country music capital
Yes.
of Australia. And this is the view from the top of the hill up at the lookout.
It's amazing.
So,
Must get
yeah,
down there somewhere, sometime.
yep, beautiful. So, today I have asked Meena to come on and talk about her new book. And I mean, I'm always excited by people who write a book because you've got some people are in awe of authors, and you've got other people like, oh, yeah, so you wrote a book. So what? Everyone's got a book.
Yeah,
But
that's
what would you say to those people who have that comment in particular, Meena? Was it easy?
no, not really. But some of the characters of the book were literally residing in me for almost 20, more than 29 years, really. And for me, as far as writing the book itself, initially, this was also around the time that I was just finishing my first round of chemo treatment, you know.
Mm-hmm,
And after my surgery, suddenly the book just started flowing. So I was into 45,000 words before I even knew it. And then my sister
wow.
who was here to,
Mm-hmm,
she read, I gave her to read. She's the one who's always encouraged me to write. And she said, no, Meena, this looks like a novel and
mm-hmm,
you must publish it. It's a novel, it's only 45,000 words. And I started researching what is a novel. So it's like 60,000, 70,000 words, and I got bogged down with that. And then it became very artificial. So you can't
mm-hmm.
just write words, it has to make sense. So it actually took me 10 years to
Wow.
finish my book.
Yes. So I just want to congratulate you because it's huge. Like I've written numerous books, but each of them has a different journey of how it came about. And so for anyone who says, oh, yeah, such and such, oh, you've written a book, so what? Actually, no, it's a big deal. And it's not just the writing of the book, it's the editing, it's the marketing, it's the working together with the team,
Oh,
with the
yes.
distributors, with the everything. It is a big deal. So just well done. It's just fabulous. I'm so pleased for you. And I think
Thank you
maybe
very
you'll
much.
have to put your other story into that as well, into book form,
Okay.
because the feedback I got and the feedback you're sharing today, I think that would be very worthwhile and it would be an important book. Yeah.
I'll think about that, surely.
Cool. Okay, now what I would like to ask you today is first of all, it's called the Peripheral.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to start by you sharing, and just to let people who are watching know, thank you for being part of it, and thank you for coming on today. We are going to split this into two parts because Meena's been on before. It was just really special to get that feedback and to catch up with where she's at. So we are going to split this into two. And so we're going to ask a few questions first, and then we're going to stop the recording, and then we're going to come back because with these, we like to have the minimum 25, maybe 35 minutes, but occasionally they do go, say, up to an hour. But we are going to split this one today. So first of all, before we get into why you called it the Peripheral, just tell us a little bit about what the book is about. And I'm so excited because it's such a different topic. And we had so much fun when we were doing the first prep call before we did this.
That's right. Well, thank you for having me, Catherine. It's always a pleasure talking to you. About the book, quite simply, The Peripheral is a story of the pain of being different.
Mm.
It's also about secrets and discovery, of love, humor, and glimpses of migrant lives. So there are really two separate but connected underlying themes here, and they relate to the two main protagonists. One is about migrant life, represented by Renee, an immigrant child growing up in Sydney. She stumbles upon a long held secret that shakes her to the core of her being. And this leads, although she has had uh, unpleasant experiences as a teenager, on her last trip to India, she had promised herself never to go back again. But to discover the secret behind what has so obviously been kept a secret by her parents, she must make that journey. And of course, this leads to travel through India, the culture shock, and there is also the seesawing expectations of first generation migrants, their everyday worries, angst, and the dichotomy of where they would be happier. Uh, and of course, Renee's life will never be the same again after this journey back to her
Yep.
country.
And just before you go on to the next character, when we spoke the other day, it was about the reverse culture shock. So people who haven't lived in other nations don't understand that. Look, when we leave and we go to live in another country, yes, it can be a culture shock, but it's new, it's exciting. Yes, it's frustrating. We may not be able to speak the language. We may have issues with the visas or where to buy milk or, the internet's not working or all sorts of things. But could you just explain a little bit more for people who haven't had that experience or perhaps who are thinking of going to live in another country or even be an international student? What is it going to be like when they go home?
Exactly. So there is one, Renee, who's moved here when she was only 8 years old. So for all practical purposes, she's an Aussie. So for her, when she goes back as a teenager, she gets asked questions like, uh, you know, do the whites, look upon her differently? Does she watch? Aren't they a very terribly free society, running around bare-bodied, drinking beer all day? Has she? Don't they have sex before marriage? Have you had sex? And all of that, till the point came when she felt like she was an alien in her own country of birth. And at the same time, there are the first generation migrants who come, and then they can't cut off that umbilical cord, which ties them back home. So they remember those sights and the foods and the smells and those places that they've left behind. So they will come here for a better quality of life, or for their children's sake. But then they still have those memories, so which you will find in the book. And some are funny, and some are, just there's a lot of nostalgia.
Yeah, yeah. And just before you go on, as a white person who has lived in different countries, especially in Southeast Asia, not everybody walks around with hardly any clothes on. Not everybody jumps into bed with everybody. Not everybody speaks their mind or does all of these things. That, I would say, would be a more popular idea that's put forward by Hollywood and things. It was horrible. When I had some of my closest friends, even after 10 or 20 years of knowing me, they're like, well, don't you go and sleep with everybody? And I'm like, okay, what planet are you on? Like, why would you even think that? Because they've watched a few Western movies, or maybe the first few Western movies, like really bad movies they watched, everybody did that.
Yeah.
So please don't think all white people do that.
No, certainly not. But the reverse culture shock I was talking about is that people who go from here actually are shocked when they see the young people back there in their country of origin. Things have changed. They could be even more, what's the word, uh, more of a freer society than what we find here in the West, because there's a part where Renee says that, we are pretty sheltered, and it's not that all of us are virgins or we don't, have relationships, but we wouldn't do it in front of our parents, like these kids are doing here in this party. So
Yes.
it's both ways. We also go back and see, hey, what's happening here?
Yes, absolutely. Cool. Okay, so we're just about at the half-hour mark, but let's just we can come back to the second protagonist that you want to talk about after in the second interview.
Okay.
And I'm super excited for you to share, even though Renee interests me, it's the second one you're going to share about that is like it's so different, you wouldn't expect it, and it's just led to so many interesting conversations and again sharing, because Meena's been in Australia a long time and living between Australia and Australia and India. I've lived between Australia and Indonesia and even East Timor and had a lot to do with other cultures as well, and it's just fascinating. But before we get on to that, the title, The Peripheral. I'm curious about, why did you call it The Peripheral?
Okay. So this is also a story now about the other underlying theme. So one is the migrant experience and all of that. But the other underlying theme, which is very dear to my heart, is that people who are considered different or who do not conform to society's idea of normal often find themselves having to live on the periphery of society.
Yes, I love it. Love it. So we're just going to hold that there, so the people are going to be wanting to know about who the second character is and what that second one is, which a lot of the questions are actually about that. So I think what we might do is we might just stop this one here. And so those of you who are just joining, please go back and listen from the beginning. It's amazing. We're so pleased to have Meena back again. And we are going to stop this recording here, and then we're going to go through to the second one. So even to find out where to find the book or where to be able to buy the book, you'll need to have a look at the second one. Otherwise, it will be in the description. Okay, thanks so much, everyone. And we are going to come back shortly.